Thank you, Michael. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Um, I did sort of change the focus of the talk recently, so it won't be so much hard physics, but it is for me anyway, I found it a very interesting exploration into fifth dimensional consciousness. And so what a crazy fun subject. I mean, you could go from crystalline cities and angels and channeling and all of these other things, all the way to what Alanis Morissette was talking about, which is how do we embody it into our physical life on a day-to-day basis? And how do you define utopia? So in groups like this, we banter this phrase, fifth dimension consciousness, all over the place. And I seldom hear anyone say exactly what it is or where it is or how do you get there. But where is there? What does it look like? And would we even know when we got there? My cat's going to help me here. So what if there is nowhere to go? Being on a Zoom call like this, we're experiencing two-dimensional reality, sort of in a three-dimensional way, which is an interesting mix that we've been studying this year. When we meet in person, we add the third dimension. And that's sort of the joke now that we're getting back together is, oh my God, look at that. You do have a third dimension. The three dimensions are, generally speaking, height, width, and depth. The fourth dimension is space-time. Now that's starting to get a little tricky because space and time are constructs of the mind. So does that make them real or does that make them not real? Well, I think that question leads us to the fifth dimension. So what is the fifth dimension? Well, as I was growing up, my father introduced me to a highly energetic world, which, in his words, brought forth the physical reality we experience. Since it brings forth everything in the physical world, it is the source of the physical world. I grew up considering it to be source. Everything in my physical reality takes place first in the non-physical aspect of itself, in source. Once it comes into physical manifestation, it's then maintained by the energetic imprint in this other world. Not only that, but there are many things in the energetic world that never do materialize. This energetic world powering our familiar world is the fifth dimension. The Kabbalion calls it mind. Is it between our ears? Is that where we're going? All this work, all this folderol, all these get-togethers, is that really where we're going? Is in to the mind? Fifth dimensional consciousness then is becoming aware of the energetic world and coming to understand it. Living in a fifth dimensionally conscious society is to be an aware, awake individual living among others who are also aware and awake. You can find them in gatherings like Circle of Miracles or other similar places where we boldly go where no man has gone before. Just to quote one of my favorite shows, which is Star Trek. Some people call the energy behind our physical world love. Since it runs everything in the physical, it runs nature and tends to the greatest detail of everything on this planet. And I suspect numerous other planets as well. When one walks in nature, they have the choice to see love or danger. It's a very important choice because we all have this choice in every moment of our physical lives too. We can see love or we can see something else. If we choose to see something else, it does not mean that love is not present. It simply means that we're choosing not to experience it in the moment. Since that choice is always in front of us, love is always in front of us, waiting patiently to be seen. According to A Course in Miracles, it is the only thing that is always available to us. It is the only thing that is real. So this would stand testament that the source world is love. Now, if this is true, then being loving, seeing love, being love is the key to living in awareness of the energetic world. Choosing love puts our vibration in resonance with love everywhere. And in this way, we have access to infinity. In this state of awareness, we can consciously move in both dimensions, third dimension reality and fifth dimension reality, simultaneously. This could be called resonating with both worlds at the same time. Jesus may have been talking about this when he said, "Be in this world, but not of it." The way to not be of it is to choose love. That way, you're still in the physical world because we are physical beings, but you are of love, which is the source world. Though it would be fun to go into some descriptions of what people see when they go to the fifth dimension, things like crystalline cities, iridescent beings of light 8 feet tall, and the ever-present feeling of love, safety, and joy. You can find these descriptions in many other places. I'd like to use our time this morning discussing how to reach this state of joining the all that is. Mind you, I'm not an expert. I'm one who has been there on occasion and strives to become a more frequent visitor. But as far as I know, physical being residents of the fifth dimension, though they do exist, are rare. We are well aware of polarities in the physical world: light and dark, hot and cold, love and hate, on and on. In third dimensional consciousness, we invest in one side of the polarity and struggle against the other side. This is really important. No matter what we invest ourselves in, we are struggling against the other side of that spectrum. Carl Jung said that everything that comes from the field of all that is, as it crosses the threshold to become physically manifest, splits into a spectrum of itself. Love, though it's pure in its state in the fifth dimensional world, when it comes to 3 dimensions, it splits into a spectrum. So we experience it as love or hate. And some of the things that we say in this level of consciousness is, I want to live in the light, or we should love more. There was a hit song with the tagline, "You've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything." I thought that was really cute. But it is a recipe for drama, okay? It really is. And in translating that line, I would say you have to choose one end of a spectrum and fight against the other end, or you might be duped at some point during your life, as if that's a bad thing. I propose that the opposite is actually the case. I propose that when you don't stand for something, and when you simply let it be what it is, and you choose for something, love, everything changes. I received a piece of mail yesterday that had big letters across the cover. Take a stand against hate. Take a stand against hate. I didn't open it because, as with all spectrums, with all polarities, there's only one thing, not two. On the love-hate spectrum, there is only love. And there is the lack of love. Hate is a non-entity. It shows up where there's a lack of something else, love. It's not a thing to be fought. One who is taking a stand against hate is swinging their sword in the air. It keeps them busy, but it really doesn't achieve very much. Light, dark. Darkness is only the lack of light. It isn't really a thing. It's the lack of a thing. The only way to dispel darkness is to bring light. The only way to dispel hate is to bring love. Alanis Morissette described her utopia. It's filled with descriptions of people behaving in loving ways. The situations were all in physical form. They were all taking place in the physical reality. She is expounding on the idea that we can experience fifth dimensional consciousness while still in physical form. Many people feel that fifth dimensional consciousness is where you'll go after you die and you drop the body, that as long as we have the body, we can't get to it. But if it's between our ears, what's to stop us? We can reach utopia right here and now, still embodied. I propose there are two worlds living in the physical plane right now, utopia and dystopia. Reverend Cindy mentioned this to me earlier this week, and it really works. Thank you, Cindy. Fifth dimensional consciousness reveals utopia. That's what Alanis Morissette was singing about. Third dimensional consciousness reveals dystopia. Our reptile brains prefer to watch and study dystopia. They're all about preserving the life of the body. So our news stations report constantly on dystopia because it catches more people's attention. The downside of this is that it makes us feel that the whole world is suffering in dystopia. We could live our entire physical lives experiencing only that. Fortunately, though, most of us split our time between utopia and dystopia. My experience tells me that we are moving away from dystopia and into utopia as a society. More and more people are coming to the idea that there has to be a better way. The universe is supporting us and bringing us things like COVID and other methods that are breaking down the framework that holds dystopia in place. We've just gone through an amazing year of change, change between our ears. We used to think that we had to get in a car and drive somewhere to get together. And look at us now. Look at us here. How many of us are? 40 of us gathered together in a room. It's even called a room. And we're all over the place geographically. This is a whole new idea that this would be a valid way to meet. When you have the thought that there must be a better way, when not there could be a better way, not, gosh, it'd be nice if we found a better way. But when you say there has to be a better way, it's like sending up a flare to the utopians, to the residents up in fifth dimensional consciousness, to the source world. And the universe moves in to help you find your way to the better way. You find your way to groups like Circle of Miracles. You think back on your life and realize that actually everything really did work out after all, because it brought you here. Your inner eyes begin to see things you never saw before. And your inner ears hear your guidance from within, louder than all the noise outside. You begin to trust those impulses, those feelings of knowing, and move in the direction where they pull you. You weary of the fight and begin to understand what Einstein and A Course in Miracles, believe it or not, the two of them are very clear on this, along with many others have said. A problem cannot be solved on the same level in which it was created. Take that saying and put it in this picture that we have the two worlds, the utopia dystopia picture. And you can see the two levels clearly. Problems are created in dystopia and they will be solved in utopia. They are two ends of a spectrum also, utopia, dystopia. They're on that spectrum, and dystopia is simply the lack of people making the choice for love, utopia. We can choose which end we wish to experience, but we cannot eradicate the other end. We can't fight dystopia. It doesn't really exist any more than hate exists. But we can work with it because it will automatically happen when we enter unity. Because in unity, the spectrum ceases to exist. And dystopia is the end that will cease to exist. So there's no need to fix dystopia. It can't be done. It's not broken. It doesn't exist. We don't have to fight it. We don't have to take a stand against it. It's like taking a stand against hate. It simply won't eradicate hate or dystopia. Instead, choose what you want to experience and then be that. If you're tired of hate, be love. Then you'll feel love. If you want to end dystopia, end it for yourself. Enter utopia through being loving, being respectful, even when it's difficult or doesn't make sense. Even when it's difficult or it doesn't make sense. Do this for you, not against anyone. As we leave dystopia one by one, it becomes less intense, simply by our leaving. And we get to be in utopia by our leaving dystopia. It's one spectrum, nothing to lose, and joy and happiness to gain. How do you leave dystopia? How do you rise above the battlefield in terms of A Course in Miracles? How do you rise above fear, hate, and reactionary societies of old? Well, there are many ways. I'm sure you know your own, but I'll share a few here. When you're in the thick of the struggle, do your best to not engage. Let the fight go on without you. Let it be okay that others might think you're not right, not smart, not pretty. I love this thought from A Course in Miracles. Which would you prefer, being right or being happy? Wow. Growing up as one who was very invested in being right and looking intelligent, that one hit me between the eyes. What am I giving up in my struggle to be considered right? Sometimes I can be right and happy, but sometimes there's a choice. Personally, I'd rather be thought a happy fool than to be miserable and right. Find love in your life. If you have no one else to give it to you, give it to yourself. You want to receive flowers? Send them to yourself. Feel the compassion. Look for it. Name it when it happens. Think on it. Close your eyes and envision yourself in a peaceful, beautiful place, surrounded by things and people you love, respect, and want to be with. This trip between your ears is what determines your emotions and your feelings. Learn to use it to take you to happiness and joy, because it can do it at a moment's notice. And know that you're not alone. Whatever kind of love it was that created a tree or a blade of grass or a cloud also created you. and loves you too. You have been given numerous non-physical energetic helpers who are solely devoted to you, to help you move from third to fourth to fifth dimensional consciousness. How do I know? Because you're here. You're listening to this talk. The amount of work it took to get you here, everything that has taken place outside of you and within you since before the moment of your conception, and we won't even talk about what it took to get that moment of conception, was necessary to get you here today as the person you are today, to hear this talk right now. That's enormous. Do you think you did that on your own? No. You have a lot of helpers helping you along your way. Talk to them, call on them. In a quiet moment, speak with them. Now, I find that in my own experience, I've entered and departed fifth dimensional consciousness numerous times. This hasn't happened all at once for me. I do everything I can to set up possible places where it takes place, and sometimes it does. And I'm very grateful for those times. Sometimes it doesn't. And I'm learning to be grateful for those times too. Some people, however, have done it spontaneously. And some of them have become residents of fifth dimension consciousness. And they're still here in physical form to help us find our way. It could be helpful to study what they say about it. Byron Katie and Eckhart Tolle both shifted into fifth dimensional living spontaneously and have been very helpful in meeting many others to learn how to move in that direction. A Course in Miracles will point you there. And there are so many other books to read and courses to take. These days, even angels are speaking through willing humans called channels to communicate clearly with us and help us raise ourselves to the next level of our evolution. In many of these presentations, we can even ask the angel almost directly in physical form for advice. It's an amazing process, and it's coming throughout the world. There is no saying no anymore. I find outside sources helpful, but to keep myself from being led astray, I check with them on my inner guides. As I'm going through a course, I consistently ask myself if the current teaching I'm studying is loving. Personally, I feel this keeps me safe. If it is loving, then I'm moving towards source. And that is our destination. Not that we're ever not with source. This is the fun part. It's just that we're often not aware of it. In coming to the awareness of our oneness with source, we are raised to the next level of consciousness. This movement toward higher consciousness is inevitable. It's not an option. It's guaranteed to take place. About as much effect as we have on this would be we could delay it. We could extend it, the trip that is, but we can't keep it from being taken. It's like the raindrop. The raindrop will eventually find its way back to the ocean. It might land in the desert and have to be evaporated and rain somewhere else, or maybe find underwater streams. It could be a very long trip back to the ocean, but that's where it's going, and it will arrive. Now it is time for the human species to take the next step. We are being contacted in numerous ways through numerous methods, and our old structures are coming apart. Let's not rebuild them at all. Let's build anew. We're not building back better. Let's build forward better. Let's make better choices. Let's move forward in our society and become something different than we were in the past. Let's move into the fifth dimensional society. Find only love, teach only love, be only love. Welcome to fifth dimensional consciousness. Thank you.